All right, thank you all for coming. I'm going to be talking about optimizing your workflow with outside tooling. I am Nathan Reamer, but you probably know me better as Camp Karen. I am a community sage, and I have been on this platform for 11 years now as a developer. I've seen it all. I'm going to be talking about the benefits of modern tooling. I'm going to be talking about file syncing using an external editor. I'm talking about why that's helpful. Talking about making our editor awesome. I'm going to talk a little bit about GitHub. And I'm going to actually show you how we actually do all this, how we set it up. So the benefits of modern tooling. First, what do I mean when I mean modern tooling? In the software engineering world, there's not really one program per task. So as Roblox developers, we use Roblox Studio to make our games. But outside Roblox, say you're making a website or software, something like that, or an app, you're generally using mostly the same tools for these jobs. Some differences, but you're still using the same editors for the most part. Because all these people are using these tools and they're so generic for any use case, that means that we can leverage it for our benefits. A lot of people are using these, and they're getting a lot of features that help solve use cases that other engineers have that we need too. They need to release deadlines, or they need to release products on deadlines. We need to release products on deadlines. They need to make sure their code isn't buggy. We need to make sure our code isn't buggy. So the benefits that these modern tools provide is that they help increase your productivity because they have to solve these issues too. For us, that means that we can get our games out the door faster and release new features faster. They provide for smoother work with team environments so that we can work on multiple features at the same time and get more done. And they allow us to do code review to prevent mistakes on our fellow developers, because we're not perfect, that we may not have noticed. But how do we actually use these modern tools? The way we do this is through a technique called file syncing, and we're going to be using an external editor. So the way this works is you're going to be using an external editor. For this talk, I'm going to be mentioning Visual Studio Code. That's just my editor of choice. You write your code on there, you save your file onto your computer, and then you use a plugin to sync the scripts from your computer onto your game, into Roblox Studio. The reason this works is because we cut out the middleman of Roblox Studio entirely. We don't write our scripts in Roblox Studio. Already, if you're just doing this, you just solved a big problem in Roblox development. So has this ever happened to you? You're working on maybe a bug fix or a small tweak or maybe even a huge feature. You might not have saved, and just as you realize that, Roblox unexpectedly errors. You lose all your work. Who knows when the last time you backed up was or when your last autosave was? Hopefully it was recent, but even then you might not know which modules are actually edited and which ones aren't. If you just use file syncing, already this problem is gone. If Roblox Studio crashes, you open up your game in Roblox Studio, you press the button to get all your code back, and it's fine. Roblox Studio crashing doesn't mean your hard drive crashes, so your code is completely fine. You don't lose anything, just a little bit of time. They provide features that you might not have even known you wanted. So, for example, Visual Studio Code lets you use multiple cursors to edit in multiple places at once. At the top there, you see me using this to add comments to multiple lines. But at the bottom is a real-world example where I wanted to add a bunch of arguments. It's repetitive, but it's not repetitive in the sense that you would want a function for this. So you can just use multiple cursors. You can even use this to, say, for example, add a bunch of commas or replace quotes, whatever you want. You can view multiple files at the same time in external editors. So right now, Roblox Studio only lets you have one window, has all your code, and you switch between tabs. And that works. But this works to a different degree that works pretty much better. So in this example, I forget an API. I'm using modular code. I forget exactly what my functions are. I just have it up on the side. I Control F. I find it, and I use it. I don't have to go to another tab. If I did that, I would risk losing my place. If your code is really modular, you might be editing multiple files at once for one feature. You can do this. You can have as many as you want. You can have them side to side, up and down, however you want for your workflow. But these are just the features that are built into Visual Studio Code in specific. But why not use these editors and introduce our own functionality for us as Roblox developers? Visual Studio Code provides snippets. That means that we can write code that's repetitive, but again, not repetitive in the sense of functions, and just have a snippet for it. So for this example, I'm using the get service pattern. This is something you're going to be writing a lot. I can just have a snippet. It has all the service names. It's way faster to type. And these snippets don't just have to be one line like this. So they can be as many lines as you want. They can be as long as you want. You can have as many variables as you want. This is an idiom for playing sounds, for example. Again, I might not want this as a function. This might be better. And in this example, I'm showing off that I can just go to the different places, type, and it all works out. I have all the code in there. If I was writing this by hand, I might introduce bugs that way by not typing it the exact way, but this works. But how much faster is it really? Well, at the bottom is me using an external editor. This is the animation I just showed. You see I even hesitate a little, but I still get it in 1 second. Well, at the top in Studio, typing as fast as I can, it takes me 5 seconds. This is an increase in 400% just by using an external editor. But how important is that really? If you use snippets, then you would be writing this code a lot faster in Studio. If you were writing it in Studio, for example, the core scripts, as of the time of writing, use this game get service thing 1,088 times. If you were writing this in Studio, that would be 1.5 hours that you would be spending just writing this one line. And that's just the ones that are in already. Who knows how many they deleted. But if you were using an external editor, it's only going to take you 18 minutes. That is a difference in 72 minutes on just this one line. If you could be using that time to write better features, write better games. Let's see the longer example. So for example, the sound thing again. In an external editor, it'll only take me 3.5 seconds, but in Studio, it takes me 10 seconds to write the whole thing out. That is an increase in 185% by using an external editor. Think about the other things you could be using snippets for aside from this. So for example, if you write object-oriented code, you're going to be writing the same thing over and over again of object equals a table, object index equals objects, all that. You can just have a snippet, write out the whole thing. Will save you a lot of time. Or you can even use this for, say, APIs you can't remember. So me, for example, I can't remember the tweeninfo.new. I don't remember the order of it. If I were not using snippets, I would have to go on the developer hub. I'd have to search it. Who knows how long that's going to take. But if I'm using snippets, that's all I have. I just have a snippet for tweeninfo.new. It fills it in for me. It's all good. Visual Studio Code also has its fair share of extensions. So there's some extensions just to fill in the holes that Roblox Studio has that Visual Studio Code doesn't. So for example, VS Code RBX Lua is just some syntax highlighting, so you know game, workspace, that kind of thing. Roblox Lua autofills provides enum and instance.new things, you know, like Roblox Studio, but it also has some functionality of its own. So on the right there, I have a bunch of color 3 values. And there's just a tiny little square where I can preview the color. I don't have to go on like a web editor or play my game. I don't have to waste time like that. And also, I can just hover over it and edit the color in real time. So that means that I'm saving time by not having to, you know, go on a website and pick out the color from there. Or, you know, I'm using an ugly color just because it's easy to remember. And again, because Visual Studio Code and all these editors are for all developers, there are extensions just for generic use cases, like bookmarks. You can jump around in places in your code, even across files. Whereas in Roblox Studio, you'd have to have, again, a bunch of tabs, and you Control F. You don't have to waste time with that. You can just use bookmarks. So now I'm going to talk about GitHub. This is an optional topic, but if you're using this, you might as well be using GitHub. It very much helps your productivity. So what is GitHub? It's a host for these things called Git repositories, and it's a form of version control software. But what does any of that mean? Well, that means that it keeps all versions of your code throughout its entire history. So when you start using Git, you will make commit messages. That just means whenever you make a change, you explain what it is, and you have them all in one big blog, and you can go back through time to time. That means that we can fearlessly work on code, and we won't have to worry about losing work. So let's say, for example, you're doing a big refactor. If it doesn't work out, then in Roblox Studio, you'd either have to save a backup, and again, you might have issues of, well, what modules did I actually change? Or you'd have to go into all your files and Control-Z, 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 and you're wasting time. But instead, you can just use Git and revert everything that you just did, and you don't have to waste time with that. You can see when code is added to understand it better with that documentation. So let's say, for example, there is some function that you have in your code that you don't really understand. Well, you can see exactly when it was added and see the context in which it was in, and it might help you a bit better. Git is vital for working with teams, and it's so vital that you will not find any software engineering studio that doesn't use some form of version control software. It helps you work on completely separate features at the exact same time. So let's see an example. We have our 3 developers here, and they want to make a game. They don't want to work on the scripts at the same time because they know how well that turns out. One of them's going to be editing a script, and the other one's going to play, and it's going to be buggy, and one of them might find a bug, and they think it's because of their code, and you get all these messes. If you've done team create with scripts, you know what I'm talking about. They don't want to deal with that. Instead, they're just going to work one at a time. So they have their roadmap. They're going to add Doge pets. They're going to add a banana power-up. They're going to add chicken hats. That's their game. So our first developer gets right to work. It's going to take 3 days for them to finish the job. But everyone else just has to wait. So Monday goes by. Tuesday goes by. Wednesday goes by. They might even be rushing him, so he's going to be making shoddier work. OK, first developer's done. Our first item on the roadmap, gone. Second thing on the roadmap. Our second developer gets right to work. It's going to take him 2 days. And again, old avatar Shedletsky just has to sit here and wait. So Thursday goes by, Friday goes by, and our game's still not out. OK, they're going to try this again. So they're going to be using GitHub. What that means is they're going to each have a branch for the feature they're working on. They're going to be working on the game at the same time, but not on the same build. They're going to have their own copy of the place. That means that they can do whatever changes they want on it, and once they're done, they can merge it into the actual place that your players will play. So now they're all working at the same time. So our third item on the roadmap gets done by Monday. 1 day, done. The monkey, our second developer, it's going to take them 2 days to work on that feature, but they started on Monday, so they get it in by Tuesday. Our third developer, again, they started working on Monday. They get it in by 3 days. 3 days, our game is done. And imagine if instead of days, this is weeks, and you're working on big features. But we got our thing done in 3 days. And happier games, faster games being made means our happier players. So how do we actually do this? Well, this is the part where it gets a little bit weird to explain, but I'll do my best. So this is GitHub's desktop application. It's easy to use, but there's a lot of panels here, and it's a bit weird, so I'm going to break it down. So at the top there, I don't know if you can see it very well, that's the branch. So when you're working on a feature, you're going to be doing it in a separate branch from everyone else, because you don't want to be working on the game that's on production, because you might cause issues. On the left there, those are your commits. So whenever you make a code change, you're going to write it as a commit. You're going to say, I changed these files, and I added this function, or I added this functionality, fixed this bug, all that. On the right there, that's the actual changes. So it's going to show the exact difference in lines, all that. So you can see exactly what was changed and look at what other developers are changing with their features. Here's just another screenshot of that. You can see that these files can be changed however you want. So this is just a bunch of lines of code being added. On the left there, you see all the files I'm changing. But this is, again, a pretty weird topic to talk about. It's a bit hard to explain this in the time that I have. So I would recommend these links. I would recommend that you go to that first link. It teaches you the thought process when you're using Git. And those last two are talking about specifically the GitHub desktop app. And you can find a lot of tutorials on YouTube, all that. But let's say that we got our game on GitHub. Well, now that we're on GitHub, why don't we use a functionality that's actually on there? So we're going to be using GitHub issues. So the issues feature allows us to create entire threads dedicated to bugs and feature requests, and we share them with our whole team. It allows for extremely precise labeling. So for example, I can be as broad as bug, or I can have a bunch of labels as like, this is a feature and it involves this module, this whatever. You can go through the labels. So let's say you want to add a bunch of features. Well, you just go to the label feature request, put it all there, or the label bug, all that. You can assign issues to specific milestones and projects in the same way. So that one, I don't know if you can see it. It says that this one I deem necessary before release. So if I want my game out fast, I have a bunch of issues that are I cannot release my game without this feature, and then I can go through that list, add them all in. This is something that Trello doesn't have. You might have been thinking, well, I already have Trello, or I'm just talking with my friends on chat saying what we need to do. Well, here's something that can't do. This allows you to embed specific pieces of code. So in the GitHub issues, you can say a file, you say the lines, and it'll put the code in. And the cool thing about this is because GitHub is version control software, it keeps all your versions. So let's say that you have a Trello card, and you say, hey, it's in script main, line 15. Well, that's not going to be too helpful in the future. Line 15 is not always going to be what it is then. That script might be deleted in the future or moved. With this, though, no matter what I do to the script in that or whatever I do with the lines, it's always going to look like that. And this is super helpful if I'm fixing a bug that I've encountered in the past, and I can just see, hey, the problem was this, and I can fix it faster without having to look through a bunch of stuff. If you're a power user, you can even use issues to embed Roblox errors. So whenever my game has an error, it'll make an issue on GitHub, it'll say the dump, and it'll even say the line that's erroring. It'll label it error. And down there, again, I don't know if you can see it, but I closed this in a specific commit. So if I get an error again, I can check the issues and just say, hey, what was the problem with attempt to index local parent in rage handler? It's like, oh, I see the exact code that fixed it. I'll just do it again, or I'll see why that didn't work. If you're on teams, pull requests are what makes it so great alongside working on features at the same time. This is what actually lets you leverage that. It allows for code review on your fellow team members, make sure they aren't releasing buggy code. And here's just an example of that. So my module, DataStore2, it's on GitHub, which means anyone can contribute to it. So this developer wanted to add in their own features. So I take a look, I see a typo, I tell him the fix. He can even just press a button and then merge it in. And then once we're all happy developers, then I can just merge the code in, and it's in all the games. If you use dependencies like Roact, Rodux, CMDR, or DataStore2, those are all on GitHub. You can use submodules in a program called Dependabot to automatically update them. All this is free, while still making sure that it actually works with your game. So this is a limitation of packages right now, which is being solved if you listen to a previous talk. But for now, packages, when a script updates, it'll just show you the code that's changed. But if it's a big refactor, you won't want to look through all that code and see what changed. With Dependabot, because we're writing actual text, so I can see what actually changed. So if it's like, hey, we removed this function in a dependency, well, I'm using that function. I don't want that change. I can choose to sync it whenever I want or just never. OK, so how do I actually sync my files? Well, the most robust file syncer right now is called Roho. It syncs both scripts and models. It's written by a Roblox engineer, Lucian, same person who made Roact and all that. It has a great third-party Visual Studio Code extension by Eva Era, who makes CMDR Rover. It's used in games right now, such as Adopt Me. It's battle-tested. It's a bit difficult to integrate at first, but I've made it easy. I have written a tool called RBXLX2Roho, bit of a lengthy name. If you have an existing place, you can use this program to convert your place and then sync it. So here's the process. And all this is going to be online if you can't follow along, or you can watch this video afterwards. So I have my place. I'm just going to use Roblox Studio and just save it as an RBXLX file. Make sure you have that last X at the end. And I'm going to make sure I download the tool. Right now it's only on Windows, but hopefully by tomorrow I'll have a Mac version set up. So you open that program, and then you're going to choose the RBXLX file. Then you choose the folder that you want it into, where it's going to dump all your code. And then once you do that, you're done with that tool. So as you can see, all the scripts and whatnot saved. This is just a template place. It all worked out fine. So now we're going to get a Visual Studio Code extension. And again, Microsoft Visual Studio Code, it's a free editor. Go try it. You can install the Roho extension for it by clicking those little boxes on the left. Type Roho, then install it. But now we're going to do something a bit weird. We're going to go into the settings of the extension, and we're going to make sure it's the pre-release. This is just because the actively developed branch of Roho isn't completely out yet. Hopefully it will be in the future, but you have to do this for now. Then we're going to open up the folder that we chose, File, Open Folder. And then you're going to choose wherever you exported all this to. It should have a file called default.project.json. Then we're going to find the Roblox plugin for it. So search for Roho on Roblox plugins. Install the latest one by LPG Hat Guy. The current version, I believe, is 0.5.0 alpha 13. Make sure you get that one. Then you click Connect. You're done. That's all you have to do. Whenever you want to work on the place again, you just, again, start it in Visual Studio Code, and you click Connect. It's really fast. It works well. Again, you can search for the other extensions I mentioned on Visual Studio Code using the same search where you found the Roho extension. It's all good. So in conclusion, file syncing is awesome, and it lets you use professional tools that help you make your games faster. GitHub is optional, but it's awesome too. Version control and working on multiple features at the same time lets your entire team be more productive. And there's the links. All will be online.